Windsor, Ontario is best known as Canada's automotive capital and its southernmost city. It's located just across from Detroit, Michigan. And people here often associate it with its historic distilleries, its rum-running lore, its cross-border culture, and its vibrant waterfront. But beyond those images lies a rich queer history, filled with firsts, trailblazers, and stories that shaped the lives of LGBTQ people here in Canada. We're going to meet up with someone who's made it their mission to keep those stories from fading away. Walter Cassidy is what you would call a history buff. Born in Windsor, raised in Essex County, Cassidy, a local high school teacher, has become a key voice in documenting queer history in the area. And over the years, he's created online and in-person tours of important LGBTQ+ sites. Walter, what's so special about this neighborhood?
Well, this is a sandwich town. This is the first community, the first settler area in the Windsor area. And it goes all the way back to the late 1700s. The first community, and we're at like the first courthouse.
Something pretty iconic happened here.
Yes. So in 1842, two soldiers from Fort Malden, which is in Amherstburg just down that way, were caught having some fun. And they were arrested and put on trial for it. And at that point, for engaging in gay sex was a capital offense. And so they were put on trial to be hanged. Luckily, these two soldiers got their sentence commuted. It actually in the newspaper even said the day they were going to be hung. And the Governor General got involved, and his secretary wrote a letter to commune their sentence to life imprisonment. So instead of being hung, they were sent to the Kingston Pen.
Leaving a darker chapter in Canada's history behind, we move toward a place that once stood as a beacon of celebration and pride. The Westside House operated as an unofficial lesbian bar before transforming into the disco known as JP's. Its doors closed in 1988, and the building was later torn down, leaving only an empty lot where so much life once flourished.
This one is actually one of the most important spaces for the longest time. It was one of the first openly gay spaces, and this was an internationally known gay bar that people went from hundreds and hundreds of miles to come and visit for one reason only.
What was that?
There's a term called the Windsor Ballet.
What does that mean?
So the Windsor Ballet, it all started with a bar downtown called Tracy Star, which was a burlesque house, and it actually had a drag queen who was the MC, and they would strip. And they stripped fully naked, and they got arrested, and they took it to court and won. And then Windsor became the first place in Canada that allowed full nudity. Us queers like to use codes, and there was a phrase called the Windsor Ballet, if going to the Windsor Ballet meant to go to the strip clubs.
Cassidy hopes whatever's built here will acknowledge the joy this place once held. He believes places like this matter because so many were taught to forget them.
The memories people have told me, I've talked to so many people who met the love of their lives here. The first Miss Gay Windsor was done here. Like, there was so much celebration. Our elders don't see those stories as valuable because they were told to hide them. They were told not to be open about it. And so there's so much stuff that is gone.
Our next stop takes us to the story of John Damien and his fight for human rights.
City Hall's right there, and this space is actually where the first protests happened for gay rights in Windsor's history. I think 20 to 30 people. They had signs, and with City Hall right there, it was just making a statement. And it was part of a national protest in support of John Damien.
Who is John Damien?
So John Damien was a Windsorite. He actually got trained in Detroit and became a horse jockey and got a pretty good name for himself. He ended up actually doing different jobs, but then his last job, well, he was a steward. And in horse racing, that was one of the evaluators of the race. And there were 3 in Ontario, and he was one of them. And then he got an STD, and went to his doctor, which would have been connected to the racing commission. He told his doctor how he got the STD, and his doctor told his boss that he was gay, and he got fired.
So his doctor outed him?
He outed him, absolutely.
According to Cassidy, Damien's boss was concerned that Damien's race evaluations would be biased by his sexual attraction to certain jockeys, and that being gay would leave him vulnerable to blackmail. At the time, sexual orientation wasn't included in the Human Rights Code, and the Canadian Human Rights Act didn't exist. So he took the Ontario government to court.
The court case lasted his whole life. Unfortunately, he died in '86, months after sexual orientation was put into the Human Rights Code. And newspapers all over the province said John Damien finally got his wish.
Our final stop challenges what we think we know about the history of bathhouses. When Canadians think of bathhouse raids, they might think of Operation Soap on February 5th, 1981. The Toronto Star photographed the aftermath when police carried out a series of large-scale raids on 4 gay bathhouses, arresting hundreds and sparking widespread outrage. But Canada's first happened here in 1964 at a small establishment once known as Etna's Steam Bath.
There was this law that was normally used for sex workers called the Bathhouse. And if you had any type of sex acts that had money exchange and so on, you could be charged for that. And this is the first example where they used it against gay men. What's really interesting too is, you paid to get in, but there wasn't that concept of sex workers. There was a lot of people who just hung out here. Right? Yes, there was an aspect of sexuality and so on, but for the most part, it was a place to hang out, to be yourself. And later on the years, I understand it was a much older clientele.
For a lot of people, when they think of bathhouses, there's sort of a negative connotation. Talk to me a little bit about the need for places like that.
Well, and that's the big thing that people don't understand, because, we have these laws that, especially in parks, and where people would meet and get arrested, and they're saying, what they're doing, if they do it in the privacy, no big deal, they're doing it in public. But realize that you still lost your jobs, right? So if you went to a hotel with someone could call the police on you and you can get arrested. If you actually went to your home, if you were in that situation that you owned a home on your own, right, you're lucky in that way. But if you didn't, you couldn't be with someone in a private home environment because you could get kicked out of your house and so on. So these spaces, people knew about it, but it was just hidden.
Cassidy wants these hidden histories acknowledged and respected, something that has never happened in this city.
The biggest problem for me is there's no actual recognition of this history. In this community, there's not one marker that says we were here. People were put to death, right? Were put on trial for death. That in the AIDS period, people were actually literally dying on the streets because even their bodies couldn't even be put into funeral homes. And all of those examples, the resistance and the resilience may change. And it's really important to know those histories. So to know that pain, but to know how it overcame, to say, okay, the stuff that's happening right now, horrible, bad, nasty. But we've gone through it before, and we actually have good techniques to actually counter it, especially in this country.